Hogwarts Legacy has been out for about a month now, and I've got a little over 40 hours played at this point.
Wicked.
I finished the main story, so now I'm just flying around doing some side quests, open world stuff, you know the drill. At this point, I feel like, yeah, I can look back and say I played enough and figure out what do I actually think about Hogwarts Legacy, like how good is this game? The thing is, I had a really long honeymoon phase with Hogwarts. I spent so much time thinking this is the greatest thing I've played in a really long time. Firing off spells and going to class and making potions and doing all the wizard stuff. Learning how to fly on a broom and then being able to take that broom, fly all the way around Hogwarts and the surrounding areas. It really does, on an emotional level, tick so many boxes for me in terms of what I wanted when I was a kid, when I imagined what Harry Potter could have been as a video game. I mean, this game really does answer a lot of those questions. But like any game you've played for 40 hours, you're gonna start to notice some stuff that either doesn't work for you or just flat out doesn't work in general. If you've played any open world action RPG over the last 5 to 10 years, odds are you recognize almost everything in this video game. But honestly, I've never been bothered by that. I think it more matters how this stuff is executed rather than whether it's been done before. And for the most part, Hogwarts does a lot of that open world jazz really well. Let's start with how you get around. It's so important in an open world game. You got games like Spider-Man that do traversal in very unique ways. You have more grounded games like Red Dead, just trying to be realistic. Hogwarts gives you a broom and says you can fly absolutely anywhere to your heart's content. It might be the greatest thing in this game for me because it delivers on that wizard fantasy so well. And it showcases how pretty this world is. And I was kind of blown away when I realized, oh, this game has seasons. So you go through the school year, suddenly it's fall and it's, leaves and whatever. It's winter and you've got snow on the ground and it changes the entire world. And this is a pretty decently sized world that you can explore. So it has a huge impact. Another part that delivered pretty well for me is the combat, and not necessarily how the combat works, but just the volume of spells and stuff you can learn and sort of mix and match together. Fairly quickly, you're like, oh, I need to use a yellow spell on this yellow shield, purple for purple, so on and so forth. And yeah, that definitely does get repetitive, but then you've got things like your ancient magic meter, you've got ancient magic throw, and also the unforgivable curses, which I use the hell out of. I abuse those. I Avada Kedavra'd so many people. The blocking and countering system kind of keeps things interesting and you got to stay on your toes, and you can also dodge attacks. So I think there's enough going on in terms of an action RPG style that we have here to work. The more I played though, I wish that this spell system was a little more systemic and more objects in the world were interactable. So not just I can throw the thing over there that I've seen a million times, I know to do that. What would have really pushed it forward for me is if you could interact with any object in the world. Like, it would be cool to uproot a tree with like Accio, light it on fire with Confringo, and then throw it at someone. Something like that would have been so cool. Or like throwing a guy into a lake and then glacius that lake and suddenly they're frozen. They're done. In those ways, I do think, yeah, combat can definitely get repetitive to the point where you know exactly what to do, you know how these encounters are going to play out, and you actually don't need to use the full suite of spells. That said, again, so much is good about this combat system for me. The animation is very satisfying to watch and look at. Hearing the incantations as I'm casting spells, yeah, it's just kind of the whole package. Now let's shift from combat over to gear. Now, this is something I very quickly realized I did not like about Hogwarts. I don't think it's fun to open chests and get a gear piece that has slightly higher numbers. It's sort of arbitrary. You don't really know why you're doing it. But yeah, this thing has a green arrow. I'm gonna equip it. And then to add insult to injury, there's a limited amount of inventory spaces that are locked behind an open world checklisty challenge. And the only way to get rid of your gear, unless you want to just straight up destroy it and lose out on the money, is to find a vendor. But there's no vendor at Hogwarts, so you have to fast travel somewhere else. And then you have to spend about a minute doing this right here. this is not fun. And depending on the activity that you're doing, you might be getting a lot of loot. So this is a gameplay loop that happens for me about every 30 minutes. I understand inventory capacity in certain video games where it makes sense. I don't think it makes any sense in Hogwarts, and this really just feels like a leftover mechanic from every other open world RPG that you've played that they decided, yeah, this will be familiar for players, they'll understand this. I'm not too proud to admit that it's really cool that this game came with transmog out of the box so you can switch your character's look with any other piece of gear that you find. I think dressing up my character is really fun, but I don't think for a single second that I've cared about the attack and defense stats on my gear. It's just something that I've seen so many times that specifically in Hogwarts, I don't think makes any sense. Okay, let's get back to the not complaining part of the video. The room of requirement is insane. I mean, I'm not someone who likes bases and sort of like spending a lot of time in one place in an open world game and sort of making it my own and building stuff. That cannot be further from the truth with the room of requirement in this game. It's fantastic. I lost count of how many times I was like, oh my God, I can actually do that in the room of requirement. Like, it expands so many times. Like when you get your vivarium and you get to start taking care of beasts, and then whoa, you could actually build within that beast carrying space. It's insane. There's so many random little objects you can place down and change the size of and rotate and change the color. My room probably looks like crap compared to a lot of people's, but hey, I've really enjoyed my time with it. It's so fun planting plants and then coming back later, finding the ingredients for potions and brewing stuff that you need. Honestly, so fortunate for the source material to give them an excuse to have a room like this. You could easily compare this to other games. I mean, Fallout 4 and its base building is probably a good comparison where you can say, yeah, that game probably had more options and maybe did it better in some respects, but I connected more with this room. It really made sense with sort of the story and what I needed as a student and sort of replenishing my supplies and then going back out. I don't know. It was just fun to me. What wasn't fun was hearing this every single time I got back.
You should be proud of all the potions you
Same thing with the Flu Flame Lady. Oh my God.
What are you up to now?
Did you guys realize that all roads lead back to Hogsmeade somehow? Yeah, me neither. I'm really glad my character says that every time I go to Hogsmeade.
Does it get any more cozy than Hogsmeade?
At the end of the day, these are nitpicks, but if you're playing a game for 40 plus hours, man, they really become apparent. Now that we're talking about dialogue, Hogwarts Legacy has way too much talking for my taste, and this is totally a preference thing, so I'm sure this is not an issue for a lot of people. I also understand why it has a lot of talking. I think this is a teen-rated video game that is made for a vast, wide, casual audience that wants that kind of experience. I get it. At the same time, I hit that wall. I hit a point where I was like, I am not sitting through a lot of this dialogue. There's just too much of it. It's just not worth my time. Part of that is the animation. Now, I'm not gonna look at this and tell you it's bad animation. I think it's pretty decent when you compare it to other open world games of a similar length with similar amounts of talking, but it's not impressive enough to keep my attention for that long. So it's really a combination of the writing, the amount of writing, and the animation itself that, yeah, made me hit that point where I was skipping through a lot of stuff. And hey, like I said, it's a personal preference because my favorite part of this game was outside of dialogue. I wanted to get back to that fun stuff, you know, what I was actually enjoying rather than sitting and listening to someone talking. Speaking of, let's talk about that story and the side content. So I won't really go into specifics with the story, even though the game's been out for a month. The story was fine. It felt like a bargain bin open world game story. I wanted to go through it, but only so that I could play more of the game rather than find out what happened next. However, there are some very cool set piece moments, stuff that felt very like Harry Potter, like that could have happened in one of the books or the movies. So they did a really nice job with those. Lots of hints, lots of throwbacks, lots of references to the source material. They did a fantastic job with those, and I'm sure there's a lot more in this game that I don't realize because I'm not like a mega fan. and I think fans will really appreciate. I actually enjoyed my companion storylines more, particularly Sebastian's I thought was interesting. There were some parts there where I was like, what is this, high school? And then I realized, yes, it literally is high school. But I appreciated how these companion plots unfolded over a large arc with several different sections. And so I was never quite sure when it was going to end, and then, oh, there's this other wrinkle, we have to figure that out. It was constantly surprising me in ways that I did not expect, and that was cool. As for the rest of the side content, I'm not so sure any single one of it is like great or interesting. I just think they are vehicles for you to spend more time in this world, in this game. Merlin trials, following the butterfly into the forest, like all of those checklisty things on my map, you can miss me with that. I don't like that stuff. I've done it way too many times, and so that sort of did turn me off almost immediately, especially the fact that those Merlin trials are a solution to a problem that the game created for you. Not having enough gear space, oh, you gotta go and do this stuff in order to extend it. That just didn't really work for me. I loved the caves at first when I started to explore them, but then they sort of turn into a formula that you've seen before, so it's more you know what to expect rather than, ooh, what's in this spooky cave. The field guide pages, man, that is something that I'm so mixed on. I don't quite understand it even still. It's literally fun to accio a field guide page that you see in the air, but it is overall irritating to me that there are over 100 of these and you have to Revelio in order to uncover so many of them. If I ever discovered how many times I've pressed Revelio in this video game, I'd probably throw up. All of the side stuff that's marked and on the map, and it's like, this is part of the progression, I could take it or leave it. However, there's a ton of hidden stuff in Hogwarts that I think is absolutely fantastic. Every time I found one of these, it blew my mind and really kind of sucked me into the Hogwarts, Harry Potter fantasy. I'm talking about places like the Undercroft. There's a really cool puzzle in the bell tower that I just stumbled upon and was like, is this a thing? Oh, it actually is. There's so many locked doors that you can get behind and sort of uncover letters between different characters. There's those dice math doors that made me feel really stupid when I had to look up how to do them. Anyways, anything that I felt like I uncovered for myself really worked in Hogwarts Legacy. And that's just part of the open world charm, right? Like, you have to have stuff like that that's unexpected, that's unmarked in order to give that feeling for players, and Hogwarts Legacy does it very well. Now I've got a bunch of random stuff I didn't know how to categorize that did bother me, but that I sort of understand. First off is being able to use unforgivable curses in front of your professors is so funny. Whipping out and slinging a big ol' right in front of Professor Fig, hilarious every single time. But there's no consequence for this. So this built up fantasy of, oh, unforgivable curses, you're not supposed to learn them. The game actually gives you an option not to learn them, so you can be like a good little boy or something. That doesn't land quite as hard because there's no consequence for actually using them, and especially in situations where there could be. Now, like I said, I'm not unreasonable. I understand why that would be a little insane to turn Hogwarts Legacy into a Grand Theft Auto style game with a wanted system where, oh, you used another unforgivable, off to Azkaban with you. I don't think that's a realistic expectation for this game, to be honest with you guys. Even though I would have liked to have seen some consequence, that's a little too far. That's expecting too much. Another sort of world immersion breaking moment for me was being able to lockpick doors. What, am I breaking into every single house in Hogsmeade? I guess I paid extra special attention in my burglary class. I mean, you're just breaking in every single lock you can see and stealing from chests, like right in front of people. Nobody cares. I'm not saying it should have been any different, but I am saying maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's something I noticed a lot. And actually, that ties back to, why is there gear in this game? Why am I opening a bunch of chests in a Harry Potter video game? I just don't think that was the right choice, personally. After the game that shall not be named, but I'm gonna name it anyways because it wouldn't make any sense, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I developed this real sort of recoil reaction to when a game lets you choose dialogue and it just doesn't matter, ever. Only in like one instance I can remember with the story does it really matter, And then sometimes at the end of quests, you can be kind of a dick and ask for money or a reward. I just don't think this kind of game needed that. There's really not a lot of role-playing going on outside of choosing your house. And even then, choosing your house really wasn't that big of a deal in the end. So guys, that is all for my review of Hogwarts Legacy. I think it's a pretty darn good open world video game, one of the better ones in the last 10 years. Not the best one, but definitely up there. This is probably an 8.5 video game for me. Just a couple things that got on my nerves that I didn't quite like, but still, it's hard to understate just how much fun I had with this game and just how well made it is. And for a studio that was making Disney games like Cars and whatnot, I don't know how they pulled this thing off. They did a really good job. Anyways, guys, that is it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed. This was something a little bit different. I haven't done a strict, review on the channel in a long time, so I wanted to mix things up. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed, remember to hit that like button. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and hit the bell so you don't miss my next one. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one.